10 days ago, we looked like we had a good chance to be playoff bound. And, both of those games were extremely disappointing. And it just seemed like the path going forward wasn't what we wanted it to be. So, yes, we thought this was a good time to make the change. I meant what I said last December, and I still mean it. So, yes, things were not going well. It was not what we wanted. We were hoping to be playoff bound. Things were just not seeming to go in the right way. It's something that's been on my mind. Just, I want to do the right thing by this organization, and that's the bottom line. And hope that this season would have been played out differently, but it hasn't. So it just felt like, now is the time to make the change and to really begin to look forward. I promise you, we are going to do extremely thorough and comprehensive search for both positions. It's going to be a lot of work. Rod and I are rolling up our sleeves already, and we're going to get to work immediately.
The Detroit Lions finally put an end to the Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn Patriot of the North era, an experiment that clearly did not work. So the question now is, with the Lions cleaning house, what comes next for the Honolulu Blue and Silver as they look to chart a more prosperous path forward? Matt Verderame is a national NFL reporter for FanShield. He joined me this week to assess the national perception of the Lions, the quality of their two openings, and what a regime change means for veteran quarterback Matthew Stafford. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So, Matt, if you're ready, I'll welcome you to the program, and we're excited to talk to you this afternoon about Detroit Lions football. Always great to see you, and thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Matt, obviously about a week ago now, the Lions made the decision to move on from head coach Matt Patricia and general manager Bob Quinn. So I'm just wondering your reaction to the initial decision, and how do you think the Lions are being perceived from a national perspective?
Sure. So I think, look, it was time. They had to move on. Anyone who watched that game on Thanksgiving, I think it was pretty clear that the team had given up on Patricia. When that happens, there's no going back. He comes from the Belichick school, obviously up in New England, of coaching a team hard. And if you don't get results fairly quickly with that, you're going to lose guys in this day and age. And I think that's what happened there. They never adjusted, in the way they played coverages. So Patricia did not work out. He really never worked out. And the Lions had to move on. And then with Quinn, look, once Patricia goes, Quinn's got to go with him. You can't have him making another hire. You have to start fresh. And I think with the Lions under new ownership in Sheila Ford Hamp, she's going to now take over and put her stamp on the team. And so this is a big opportunity for her in her first real hiring cycle to make the move. And to speak to their national perception, I mean, look, the Lions need to rebuild. There's a reality that they're going to get a high draft pick this year. Stafford's in his early to mid 30s, but is he somebody you want to go forward with? Do you want to blow this thing up? If you can get a quarterback you really like in the first round, you have to do it. So look, the Lions have struggled for a long time. They've won a playoff game since 1991. If they're going to break that, they're going to have to knock this out of the park. And I think a lot of that goes to they're probably not the first choice for a lot of head coaching candidates who have a lot of options. Guys like Robert Saleh, guys like Eric Bieniemy. If I'm a Lions fan, I'm looking at like Joe Brady and Matt Eberflus, guys who are really good candidates, but who maybe aren't going to have their pick of the litter I think the Lions have to go the young, under 50 assistant who's got a lot of energy, a lot to prove. And as for a GM, I'd try to get after John Dorsey. John Dorsey to me would be my first, second, and third choice. He basically built the Chiefs team that's winning Super Bowls right now, and did a nice job with the Browns. So I would circle him as a guy to look at.
Now, when we talk about reestablishing the culture for the Lions, obviously their defense is in shambles, and certainly whoever takes over, that'll be job number one after they make the decision on the quarterback. Do you think Patricia's inability to get a consistent defense also contributed to his downfall here in Detroit?
Yeah, because you come over as a defensive coordinator, and so your first job is to be really good on that side of the ball. You have to be good on the side of the ball that you're known for. If you're not that, forget it, right? Like, I think for him, the job had to be, okay, I'll build the defense into a top 5, top 10 unit, and then I'll hire an offensive coordinator who I can work with and trust to get, and I would get like Buffalo as a perfect situation for that, right? Sean McDermott took over the Bills, came from Carolina as a defensive coordinator. That defense was an elite unit last year. It struggled early this year. It's coming around now. And he hired Brian Dable to just run the offense, and he stayed out of it. And you've seen that it's gone really well in Buffalo. And for no question that was a huge part of the reason Patricia got fired, is that defense just never got better. In fact, it got worse. Whoever the next coach is who comes in, assuming it's an offensive or a defensive coordinator, that person needs to make sure that their expertise, their side of the ball is rock solid, and then they just hire well around themselves.
I wanted to ask you about Matthew Stafford. He's been here now for 12 years, and for whatever reason and whatever his level of responsibility, he just hasn't had the success with the team. So after your review of everything, is the organization still wanting to commit to him long-term, or do you think it's time to look for a future quarterback for someone to lead this football team?
Well, since I'm not the coach, I'm probably not the right person to ask that question to. So we'll see what the new coach has to say.
Just as a quick follow-up, just been your assessment of his time here, his 12 years here leading this football team.
I think he's extremely talented young man, and he's tough as nails. And, it's been tough for him. But, again, I think coaches will make that decision.
What do you think the decision to move on from those two means for the future of quarterback Matthew Stafford?
I think it's an open question. It depends on who they hire as a GM and head coach and their opinion of Stafford. Look, Stafford's a good quarterback, but he's been there now for, I believe it's a dozen seasons.
Yeah.
And he's been a very good player for a long time for them, but he's never won anything. Now part of that, look, a big part of that is not Matthew Stafford's fault. That is the team around him. That is the coaching staff. That is the front office. But they are in a position with his contract where they can move on. I think if the Lions are in position to get themselves who they believe is a franchise quarterback in the draft, and they're not going to get Lawrence, they're probably not going to get Fields, but if they were to be in a position to get somebody like the kid out of BYU, or if they really love Trey Lance out of North Dakota State, then I think you move on. Like, if I'm the Lions, I'm trying to accrue as much draft capital as possible. So if they feel like they can trade Stafford and get a real high pick for him, I would do it. Because to me, you need to just start over. My feeling is it's more likely he's gone than that he returns. But if they bring in a coaching staff that really thinks that he fits their system well, then I think it's at least still up for discussion of whether or not he comes back.
Now, do you think the Lions is an attractive team to work for? Obviously, for whoever comes in here, the Fords are traditionally an ownership group that stays out of the way and lets their football people run the football side of things. But you also have to look at the trajectory on where they hire and fire coaches. It seems like every 4 years or so, they go through the same cycle. So do you find this job to be an attractive one?
I think it's an interesting job from the standpoint that the cap is not in bad shape. You're going to have all your picks. Like, Houston's going to have an opening. And Deshaun Watson's incredible, and they have no income tax in Texas. And I think it's a really attractive job. But the downside for Houston is you don't know who's running the show there with Jack Easterby, and they don't have first or second round picks. So, there's a downside there is with Detroit, they have all the picks. Now, I will say this. I don't think the job's as attractive as Houston because they have Watson. If the Chargers job becomes open, I think that's the sexiest job out there. You have Herbert, you're in Los Angeles, you have ownership that's very patient, and a roster that's pretty good. The Jets, listen, if you go there, you're getting Lawrence in all likelihood, but you're also getting everything that comes with the circus that is the New York Jets. So is that more attractive than the Lions job? It is in the sense you're getting Lawrence, but it's not in the sense that the Lions are a much more stable ownership group than the Jets. I think the Lions are going to be middle of the pack. The ownership is stable ownership, and it's new ownership. They don't fire coaches after 1 year like we've seen in places like Cleveland. And I think a lot of it, again, depends on how you feel about Stafford. If you think Stafford's your guy, then it's not a bad job to take. You can fill out around him, fill out the defense. But look, the reality is, Detroit is not Los Angeles. It's not income-free Texas or income-free Jacksonville, income tax-free Jacksonville. That's going to have a Justin Fields or a Trevor Lawrence. It's not New York City. So I think it is lower on the totem pole. That being said, there are factions of the job that are attractive. Again, free, good cap space, new ownership, even though it's the same family, new person running the show. So I don't think, and that's why I said I don't think the Lions are going to get an Eric Bieniemy because I just don't think he's going to go there if he has all of his choices. But I do think the Lions could land a really quality candidate.
Now, if you listen to people around here, that they want San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh just because of his ties to Michigan. He grew up here. He coached at Michigan State, and they went to Northern Michigan. So I'm wondering the chances you think the Lions will explore that option as a possible one, and whether you think he would be a good fit with the Lions.
Well, I think he'd be an excellent fit. I think he's an excellent coach. Along with Bieniemy and Brian Dable, I think they're the three most impressive assistants right now in the sport. They've done an unbelievable job. Joe Brady and Matt Eberflus are two other guys I mentioned earlier who also certainly deserving of a head coach opportunity. Leslie Frazier, the other coordinator in Buffalo, is another guy. Obviously, he's a coach with Minnesota, but he's right in that mix. He's done a nice job. I think he deserves a second opportunity. Look, the Lions are going to have interest in Robert Saleh. Saleh is an excellent candidate. The question is that where he wants to go if he decides to leave? This was a time last year, everybody thought that he was good as gone out of San Francisco, ended up staying. Saleh's a young guy. He runs a lot of cover three in his defense. You can find guys to play that defensive scheme. It's not overly complicated. As you mentioned, look, he's a Michigan native. He went to Northern Michigan in college. He would be an ideal if the Lions get him. To me, that's a slam dunk. That's a great hire. But again, if they can't get him, not all hope's lost here. I think Joe Brady out of Carolina would make a lot of sense. He's a really, really good coordinator. He turned Joe Burrow into a Heisman Trophy winner at LSU. You look at Eberflus is another guy I mentioned who's done a great job with the Colts, runs a lot of cover two. He's 50 years old. He's a little older. Saleh's only 41. Bieniemy, of course, is maybe the crown jewel. But I think that's a tough sell. But Saleh makes a lot of sense. And if the Lions, if Saleh would go there, the Lions should sign him yesterday.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Eric Bieniemy comes here. I think he's destined for Houston myself. But I have two more for you in terms of reestablishing the culture and going about this the right way. Obviously, Sheila Ford Hamp is the new principal owner. And last time they did this, they had sort of a narrow-minded approach because they wanted to emulate the Patriots. So how do you think the Lions learned from their last experience to make this one more successful moving forward?
Well, I think, look, it's about in the league today, it's more about, I shouldn't say more about, it's it's every bit about as much relating to your players and getting guys to buy in and wanting to play for you as it is scheme, right? Like, look, you have to have a good scheme. If you don't have a good scheme, you're not going to win games. But most guys in the NFL have some idea of a scheme they want to run. Now, Patricia, you could argue defensively, never really established that scheme. And I always worry, when guys come over from teams, and in his case, of course, from New England, and they just start bringing over every guy that they knew from their old stop, that always bothers me. Like, you shouldn't be relying on just pillaging everybody from the Patriots. It shouldn't just be Dwayne Harmon and Danny Amendola. And you should be able to find guys who fit your scheme from college, from other teams, and you should be able to marry your scheme with the personnel that you have. I think for the Lions, that's the biggest thing that went wrong with Patricia, is it just felt like he just wanted to create New England North. It doesn't work. You can't do that. New England's unto itself, right? Just like when Bieniemy leaves Kansas City, he can't just go and try to be Andy Reid. He has to be Eric Bieniemy. I think, and that's why Flores has worked out so well in Miami. Sure, they brought in Kyle Van Noy and whatnot, but they've gone and done their own thing there. They've drafted their own guys, and Flores has put his own stamp on that team. And if you're the Lions and you're Sheila Ford Hamp, I think the most important thing is, look, find somebody who you believe in and you believe will stand on their own 2 feet, that is going to come in and they're going to do it their way, win, lose, or draw. That they're not going to worry on if Robert Saleh, for example, he comes in, that he's not going to worry about bringing over 12 guys from the Niners, that he's just going to come in and say, look, this is the defense I run. These are the kind of players you want to find. These are the measurables. These are the traits. If you do that, I think more often than not, you have a good chance of being successful.
And how do you think the Lions will characterize a successful offseason?
Well, first of all, the GM and coaching hire are the most important things. If they do nothing else, but they nail those hires, they're going to be in really good shape going forward, right? I think that is absolutely number 1 and 2 on the list. I'd even argue the GM in some ways is more important. You have to get talent on the team, but really, you could flip them if you want. It's so important there to just find the long-term answer. You have to be able. The Lions haven't done that in what feels like forever, so you've got to do that. Then, as far as personnel, look, the Lions, they have cap space. They really do. I mean, they've got some room to make some decisions. Even if the cap falls significantly next year, which is expected to, the Lions have $13 million they can roll over from this year. They got $14 million projected for next year. That'd give them 27. That would put them in the top, 10 to 12 teams financially with some flexibility. So to me, if I'm the Lions, I'm not trying to go crazy in free agency. Like, I think teams make that mistake. You only go all in free agency, in my opinion, if you really think there's one guy out there, you're a player away. If I'm the Lions, I'm trying to find glue guys, pieces for that defense that can help them to stabilize this thing. Bring in some guys who have won, who still have a little bit of juice in the tank, who fit whatever system it is that comes in. But look, it's GM and coach first and second. And then after that, it's the draft. You've got to be able, like, that first round pick, it's going to be a top 10 pick in all likelihood. If you're going to get a quarterback, like, you have to nail that pick. And look, the reality is, if it is a quarterback and they take the right guy, they're going to be good. They're going to be they're going to be good sooner than later, if not right away. Like, you look at a couple of years ago, right? Like, you and I were talking about it right before we came in the air. Like, the Bears take Mitchell Trubisky. They have a great defense. It doesn't matter. Mitchell Trubisky's terrible. They're not going to win with Mitchell Trubisky. It makes no difference. The Texans got Deshaun Watson, and right now they're bad, but were good most of the time he was there. They're in a rebuild now. The Chiefs got Mahomes. They went from a perennial good team to a team that is now a Super Bowl champion and odds-on favorite to be one again. So, look, get the right GM, get the right coach, and then nail the draft. If they do those things, that is the offseason of every Detroit fan's dreams.
Hey, Matt, I want to thank you for spending a few minutes with me talking about the future and current state of Detroit Lions football. Really enjoyed our conversation, and I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon. It's much appreciated.
No problem. Anytime.
Fantastic.